Bracket racing isn't just what we do, it's who we are. It's how we identify ourselves.
What does bracket racing mean to me? It's my life. It's where my people are. My idols, my family, my friends.
Bracket racing is life. Bracket life. A little double audio there for that. So hello and welcome back. It's still all running through. Hello and welcome back to the Bracket Life Podcast for episode 2. Double audio there for that. So hello and welcome back. It's still welcome back to the Bracket Life Podcast episode 2. I'm not sure what's audio there for that. So hello and here we go. All right. I think we're all good now. Rough start, episode 2, right? We didn't have the hiccups last week, so we needed them this week a little bit.
You got to get them out of the way at some point, right? So
absolutely, right? It's going to come up. So yes, welcome back, episode 2. Glad to be here. Brandon Barker, Andrew Stark sitting with me. As always, glad to have everybody here. Nice that everybody's showing up for round 2 of it. I'm very excited. This is a great one. Looking forward to the future. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming up. February 1st. So we're getting there, right? It's slowly moving through. Yeah.
You can get the countdown. You can actually count on 3 months, maybe, depending on. I mean, that's 90 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting there. It's starting to get to crunch time. So as everybody knows, to help us out a little bit, and based on what we talked about last week, give us a little bit of insight from drag racing in Western Canada. We have our special guest that will hopefully be on a bunch of times throughout the broadcast, Travis Ringguth. So welcome to the show.
Hey guys.
Nice to have you on, bud, and glad that we got to do this. We've talked about it a lot. I know I had you on Bracket Life, the YouTube channel, same as this, for an interview last year where we talked about a lot of racing. And I'm glad that we get to do this again and really connect and talk about the differences between racing here, racing where you are, racing where Andrew is, and get the contrast of opinions.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So we started out last week, obviously talking about 2021, doing our recap, looking through, and everybody got to listen to Andrew and myself for however long, which was always fun. And then I can see through the comments already. So just to remind everybody before we get into it, everybody who comments here, let us know what's going on, say hello, and then we can check out everything that's happening. And then to talk about 2022, the highlights for that, I want everybody to comment what they're most excited for, because that's really what we're going to talk about for this whole, whatever it works out to be, 45 minutes to an hour, is our where we're excited to go, what we're excited to do, what we're excited to see.
The events that we've got marked on our calendars and stuff that we're looking forward to, right? Doesn't mean that's the entire deal. Just if you see something that we've missed or somehow that, didn't make it, like, put it up. We would like to see that. Brandon and Rachel have put together a huge Canadian-oriented schedule that you can find on the website and the Facebook, I think, group too, right?
Yep.
All the events. And I mean, that's kind of how I planned mine out. I had my mini one, and I went through that one to make sure I wasn't missing anything else that was within driving distance or anything for us, right, for our own schedule. So we look forward to hearing more back about it.
Yeah, and we've already got, as I was telling you guys before, I already have over 100 events listed on our Canadian Drag Racing Master schedule. And like we said, it's February 1st. So there's a lot of events I don't have, a lot of dates that aren't set, stuff down east, stuff out west, a lot of tracks here. There's still, room to move around. Yeah. So, very healthy racing schedule so far.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it. Like I said, you guys heard enough of Andrew and myself last week. We can start with Travis. You started promoting your own races 2 years ago now, in 2020, setting up with the Western Canadian Summer Classic. I always struggle with it, right? Like, I always get the Canadian backwards. So starting with that, and then this year now you've added 2 more events, right? So let's talk a little bit about what you've got going on.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a learning curve the last couple of years, and we kind of saw the need for maybe doing some more things at some tracks out here. So we've got 3 stops this year. First one being the Oil City Classic, which is at Rad Torque Raceway in Edmonton, and then our second stop's going to be West Coast Classic. That's in Mission in BC. So those 2 are new events, and then we've got our 3rd edition of the Western Canadian Summer Classic, which will be in Medicine Hat again, obviously. So, yeah, it's kind of going to be the same format as it was last year for us, like a 5K warm-up race on Friday, and then some 10 grand main events Saturday, Sunday, and then we do top bulb shootout, bottom bulb shootout, 24 car for the bottom, 48 for the top, and those are each 10 grand off the bottom and 30K off the top, which are Saturday night, kind of after we're done the main event type deals. And yeah, we had some really cool things last year that happened in those shootouts, and this year we're going to put a bit of a twist on it, and we'll go over that next week. I'm going to release the flyers for all the events, and then probably the following week after that, on the 17th of February, we'll be open up pre-entry for the Oil City Classic for the first event. So it's exciting. Hopefully it all works out, but we won't know till we try, right? So
I need to get my name on the Oil City event, because as we've been talking, and nothing's concrete yet, but if all goes well, and if you looked at the banner for this episode, right, there's a sweet little truck in the background. So if all goes well, then for that 30K shootout, then I can maybe be rolling that a little bit.
Absolutely. Hopefully we can make that work.
Yeah. No. Lots of opportunities, right?
You got some experience in a truck too, don't you, Brandon? You've wheeled another one too.
I do. I drove. Yeah. It's very similar. From what Travis and I have discussed last year about it, and now that truck sold back again. So I probably won't get another chance at it. but at least, I've done it. And like, it's a lot of fun. It's a blast sitting up straight in that, and then looking around. It's not quite totally a fish tank, but pretty close to it.
Well, it's kind of like a tractor is how I feel about it. Like, you're sitting up high, the wheel's close, and you can see whatever you need to. I really enjoy driving mine, but yeah, you're 100% right. You gave me some tips. Remember, I think I was hammering you with Facebook messages or texts there, asking you about tire pressure and burnout and stuff like that. And it worked out because Casey Plaisir was in it for the Western Canadian Summer Classic last year, and he made the split one day, went rounds every day. So he showed up well, and kid had never driven it before either. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. They're a lot of fun, right? The best part of driving the truck, the truck I drove, get down there and racing dragsters, right? And you think you're the big hot shot down there dropping them hard, right? Not slam the brakes there, but like it's the exact same mile an hour, right? You wore that brake pedal out, but it was, at 670 feet.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. But yeah, so if all goes well, I'd love to get a chance to go out to Alberta and check out the racing scene there. That's what else we kind of want to talk about is we all want to learn kind of what it's like to race there. I know what it is like here, and Andrew and I know what each other's area is familiar with, what different tracks usually have events and racers and whatnot. But obviously, because for both of us, we don't have any experience, traveling cross country that direction. So, if you can fill us in a little bit on kind of like average car counts for a normal race weekend, or kind of what gets most guys, out of bed for, like what are the most events or a regular event there?
Yeah, so car counts vary a lot. Like over the last few years, we've ended up with some small grassroots places popping up in Alberta, which have taken some of the guys that maybe, either don't have the budget or the interest to race at some of the bigger facilities and stuff like that. So some of our overall car counts, probably I would say have maybe dropped off a little bit for some of the no box guys and whatnot. But like, to put it in perspective, like probably the biggest thing that we've had going for the last 10 years is the Eberts Brothers Top Eliminator Series. And that's a quarter mile, 150 to enter, 5K per day, 10 race series. So 5 weekends with some rainouts and then one big money race a year. Those are getting, I'd say, anywhere from 35 to 55 cars on a regular basis. And then the bracket classes that kind of run in conjunction on those weekends, I'd say there's probably like a big car count for them would be another 30 or so between the two. So not a ton of cars at those type of events, but problem is like there's an 890 bump in that Top Eliminator Series, right? So, you have to have some fast stuff to do it.
Like at Edmonton, I mean, that's an altitude track, right? So that's like 890's moving pretty good when you're looking at the altitude you're running at, if I'm not wrong, right?
Absolutely. Like an 890 car on the coast is probably going to go 930s up here, right? Yeah. So it is a challenge, but for our events and similar events to ours, where we've kind of done the 8th mile thing, combined everything together, and not had an ET cap. Like our best year obviously was the second year. We've grown it. And I think we had 135 entries, I think, from about 120 cars. So about 15 guys double entered, somewhere around those numbers.
Yeah. Can't complain about that for sure. So that's all right. Yeah.
And so like there's some other ones too that have done really well. Like I know Nitro Big Bucks is an event in Prince George where they guarantee kind of like 7K off the top and 4K off the bottom. And I think they max that out at like, I want to say it's 50 entries per, just because it's a small facility and they only have the parking for that many. And I think last year was the first year they actually ever allowed doubles in the whole thing. And that place, when it's running and it's thriving, that was always sold out. Like you wanted to get on that race and have a spot in it type thing, right? It's just a different look, and it's a bit of an older track, but timing equipment works just fine, and it was always run really well too, right? So.
Has traction, has a good timing system. So I mean, it's what more can you ask for at this point, right? Type of place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's kind of what the car counts look like, and it's hit or miss. Like COVID, COVID did hurt racing out here, as I'm sure it did there. A lot of guys, they went and found other things to do, right?
Well, that's the funny part. We were talking about this last week a little bit. Talking to some of the tracks out here, 2020 and 2021. I'm going way too far back here now. The couple of tracks were saying like their car counts were up, and you could see it. That was the funny thing. We were all looking around, going like, "How is this going to affect us?" And some of the times at Grand Bend and Cayuga and St. Thomas, there were car counts I don't think I've ever seen for a regular bracket race. Nothing that there's no pro mods, there's no top sportsman. And at the end of the year, the tracks kind of confirmed that. Like they saw numbers they didn't expect to see, and it was really surprising. And it was kind of one of those things like across the country, like what else is going on out there? Like as you were saying, like you guys kind of saw it in a different direction. We saw it spike, and I don't think that was because people were staying on this side of the border, albeit that was an avenue. But at the same time, like there was a lot of Americans who run at Grand Bend, they didn't go because they couldn't. So it's kind of funny the starkness between the two sides, right? Like, we saw maybe a 10% bump, and you guys went the other way.
Well, and that was, more 2020 than 2021. Like last year, the car counts were strong and people were out, right? Like they were, excited to get back at it. I think the uncertainty, that kind of played into it a little bit. And like even tracks like Mission, like they could only, as we know, provincially run. Like in 2020, they could only do these kind of private rentals with no more than 50 people on the property. So, I think what they were doing is renting the track and then, maybe having a gamblers or something like that. But it really affected business and restrictions in one way or another. But no, it's for the most part, we've kind of flown under the radar with our events and stuff like that. Like, we always had uncertainty, right, on what the government was going to mandate, and if somebody showed up and told us that we couldn't do it. But knock on wood, we've skated by the last couple of years, and we're looking to grow now. So
that's good.
Hopefully it continues.
And I know for the COVID stuff, for you guys, for us at least, everybody that wanted to find someone else necessarily to do, you could still go racing because it was still within 3 hours, right? For the most part, right? Andrew's close to 3 tracks. I'm close to, I guess I got 4 tracks, then 3.5 to say 4 hours. And then really, if I want to go, the other way, I have 5 hours and I'm at Grand Bend and then everything around that. So I'm still in a good spot for it where Travis, like, you got a lot farther to drive, right? To be doing stuff like that. So if there's uncertainty at all, that's a bigger impact for you guys because, we've talked about it on how many times. And I always say, like, you might have one track, I guess, I forget how close your nearest one is, but like, there's not another one for a good 6 hours or so, right?
Yeah. So closest one for me where I live pretty far north. James Rutherford, mutual friend of ours, he lives close to me. Yeah, we're 5 hours to our closest track in a pickup. So it's a 6 hour haul with the rig, right? And then after that, like everything else is basically 12 hours. I'm 12 hours to go to Mission and I'm 12 hours to go to Medicine Hat as well. And there's a couple smaller tracks mixed in between there. Like, probably could do like 7 hours to go to one, but one that has the payouts that we pull our stuff out for, which is like kind of that 2,500 mark, as we've discussed. Like, that's what we'll pull our cars out for is a 2,500 to win type event, right? The days of us, chasing wallies and stuff like that, they're just kind of over. And Mark Simmons, who owns Spider Electric, they did the Canadian Open Series this past year and the year before, which allowed some of them guys that like to run the 90 stuff and super stock, an opportunity to maintain some grade points for when the borders did open back up. And we hit a few of those too, just because they were convenient and they were stacked really nicely on a weekend before there'd be something with money. But that's pretty rare for us too, right? So we do have to kind of pick and choose, like, and have a good solid game plan when we leave to go racing.
Yeah. No doubt, right? And then all that comes in, right? Because 12 hours for us, we're packing for a big trip. Like that's a big event for what we're doing. Where like if you that's just another weekend, I guess, or how it seems. compared, and that's just a big difference between each side of Canada.
Yeah, like 2 hours and 15 minutes gets me to 3 tracks, depending on stoplights, right? And sometimes if they're on top of each other, like 12 hours, you're in the Carolinas at, World's Your Oyster. Which track do you want to go to type of thing, right? So it's amazing when I listen to guys who are out west and I've talked to talk about going to tracks, and then you come back here and you talk about guys going like, I hate driving across the province. And I'm like, just listen to you say, like, the close track is 6 hours. I mean, 6 hours puts me at Norwalk after I hit Walmart for everything. That's it's amazing to kind of hear the difference. It's a stark reminder of kind of maybe at times how good you've got it depending on where you are, right? That you have options versus talking about 12 hours to the next closest track, right?
Yeah, and that's like, and we've talked about this before, and we could sit here for 2 hours and discuss racing and traveling and whatnot, and the differences. But to focus more like on the schedule stuff, because I know how we get, right. We talked for I don't know how long it was last night. I think we all talked for like 2 or 3 hours about everything, right? So Andrew, obviously based on last week's conversation, I think most people that saw last week's episode really have an idea, I guess, of where you are looking forward to go.
Well, absolutely.
We've got some other events marked down as well.
Yeah, so it was funny. I was going through the schedule a couple weeks ago, and when a lot of the stuff kind of dropped from everywhere else, and like, it's funny, exciting. Like, I think pretty much I'm set to race almost every weekend. If I'm allowed to. I don't think the boss is here right now or watching this live, so that's maybe why I'm getting away with this one, right? But like, you've got so many good events that aren't necessarily all big paying events, and that's kind of the one thing. Like, our end of town, you've got like the 660 Nationals, right? Sportsman Nationals. Like, that's the biggest paying race in town. I mean, if that's not circled after the way Drew, Vicky, and Ian put it on last year. Like, I don't know what you're doing, because she just says I'm watching. I just got a message, so yeah. So I'm going racing as much as I can. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
but like,
that's gotta be the first one. First one that we got to highlight this episode, right?
There you go. So, like, you have, if I understood it correctly, like, it's a 4-day race this year, right? Like, that was 3 days last year. They're looking to go to 4. It's 7,500 to win in the main events. There's 10 granders. Like, I think, and it's this Saturday is the sign up for the shootouts that we've talked about, right? So I know Drew mentioned to me to mention to the world, like, noon Eastern, February 5th, the shootout entries go live. I think on the 660 Sportsman page, you can find how to get a hold of them. And 32 car fields, like, box and Friday, 32 no box Friday, same on Saturday, right? Like, there's a ton of racing at that race, and that's what I get up for. I mean, I love racing for 2 days. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, when you can go make a haul and get first round 5 or 6 or 7 times in that trip, right? Like, I'm sure you can appreciate that, Travis. Like, we're not going far, but if you can turn 7 first round attempts at win lights on, like, that's an event, right? So, that's
Absolutely.
on there. As you touched on with the National Open, like, we have a National Open out here. Napierville's got one. Miramichi's got one out in New Brunswick. Did you get that one right? Okay. Cayuga, right? So, I mean, we did good at the one last year. Like, I've got that one circled. I love racing for Ironman Wallies. Like, I've put on record that I will race for one of them with a 0 budget or 0 purse just to go after one of those, because I have an affinity for them, right? And that's one of those events, and it's been good. Like, Division 1's done a good job up here, I think, with trying to keep that stuff active and we've got an active super stock group, Can-Am Stock Super Stock. They do a great job with their series. I'm hoping to get myself into that series shortly. We've got a car we built, 68 Camaro, that we're working on an engine package for someday to get it in there. But, like, that's a fun deal, because they've paid good money. Like, the National Open out here was $5,000 to win Saturday night last year, and I don't know what it's going to be upcoming, but, like, I would love to get a chance at going after that, type of thing. So we've got it. And even the RCSS, like, they have, because they run an NHRA track at Cayuga, they've got Wally events there. And, like, those events are circled. The ones that don't conflict with something else I'm going to, or that I've got circled, right? Like, we're going, because, again, I will race for $0 just to get a chance at one of those. So we got quite a few things, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a fun year. I'm hoping for like good weather, unlike we had last year, because there's gonna be some great racing like this summer at Southern Ontario, facilities, right? St. Thomas has got some great events. They're always fun to race. It's a small track, but like they always do a great job putting on great races.
And St. Thomas now is the 60th anniversary race coming up,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. So I think it was August. Word I got from Paul, the owner, was August 12th, 13th, 14th. They're looking to put on a 60th anniversary race, and they're going to try to bring in, I think it's Top Sportsman, Top Dragster, Pro Mod, which like they just resurfaced that track. I think it was 2 years ago. They've extended the shutdown. They got concrete walls, like all the stuff that if you're going to run fast equipment on, you want to see. I mean, even just bracket racing, like it's the type of thing you want to see there. That place has seen some events, but I mean, they haven't seen anything as big as I think what might come at them since like the John Force Can-Am Nationals, era, the Nitrous Nationals. I remember being there on Wednesday night racing at the Nitrous Nationals and watching Dad go rounds in our Super Gas Forenza, and they had pro mods there. And this is like Wednesday, right? Like these were huge deals. So it's kind of sparking some memories down our trip down memory lane here. Like if this is what's going to happen at that race, because this should be a big deal and it'll be fun to go to, right? They're going to run box, no box, I think too. They haven't had a lot of details on it. They're just still finalizing, but like Paul did give me the okay to talk about it a little bit. So naturally I will, right?
Yeah. Travis, this is a place that like when I have pictures, I think I was 2 or 3 years old and John Force was there, and like there's sweet pictures of like the wicked burnouts, right? In like the late 90s. And I got pictures of him, like, he's holding me in his arms and whatnot growing up, and it was unreal. I've only ever actually been there, I think, twice since then to race, but a lot of memories there for me, or at least one really big one.
Yeah. Would you have been there for when he burnt the car to the ground at the top end?
No idea.
Okay.
I don't think so, because I've never heard that story.
There's a lot of guys who are like, I was pretty young too, so don't get me wrong, but this guy's match racing in Canada, right? So you can appreciate they're taking time out of their NHRA schedule, and he comes to Canada and he burns a car to the ground. And I mean, this thing's toast. Like this is a John Forrest 1990s fire, and it's at St. Thomas, and they brought it back up the track on a rollback. There is nothing left of this car, right? And I'm like, how much money did he just lose match racing in Canada? Vice versa, how much money did they just pay him to burn a car down in Canada, maybe, right? Like, I'm not saying they did it on purpose, but like he took it to the finish line. He went 5 something at almost 300, and all you could see for miles was black smoke from composite pieces burning, right? And just memories, like, it was unreal, and so I'm looking forward to this race. Like I know I hadn't talked about bringing nitro cars in, but like just to have that memory of seeing people in stands at that track will be fun, and it's a small little track that's a blast.
Absolutely, it's a lot of fun. I love the history of it, right? That's where kind of when you talk to Travis about the smaller little spot there, that's usually those places are so rich with history, and because it was a different world 20 years ago, right? Like through the 90s, and obviously I missed most of it because I was really young and wasn't alive for half of it, but all the history that came from all of those little places that are still open today, it's really wicked, and I love the stories.
Yeah, and that's for us too. Like when we started promoting, we went to the smallest market. Like Medicine Hat's population is 64,000. Like it's down in the middle of nowhere, basically Alberta. Like you just keep driving for a couple hours, which you guys can appreciate. You're at the U.S. border, but it was a good place to cut our teeth. And just places like that, they've got so much character, right? Like they, local businessmen and members of the clubs, like they pour their heart and soul into places like that. And that's not to take anything away from the big facilities like Edmonton and Mission's a fairly big facility, big market too. But like those little places, it's cool the way that they operate. And like we went last year to some of them national opens, and there was a top alcohol car there, an A-fuel dragster, making laps, and like I wouldn't want to make laps there in a 730 car going quarter mile racing, you know what I mean? Like, because it's just like it's short, and He actually one of the bull cars. I think they're out of Manitoba. Actually ended up wrecking there, and it was like you got to respect guys like that that are willing to put on a show, right? And at some of these smaller tracks, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So this week I've been going through different stuff, messaging different people, talking about, hey, we're going to talk about 2022. So give me something to talk about, right? Like, let's share some information. And I got some great information here. I had 3 different sources with different stuff coming up. So the first one, and this is very exciting because everybody here that listens or pays attention to our racing or what I do, I love running the Super Tour. Love it. That's, in my opinion, right now, that's the most prestigious racing series in Canada. Once again, that's my opinion. That's the whole point of having Travis on. Because
you're not far off. I mean,
yeah.
they're paying a ton of money, right? Like when you hear about it, like you see the wins, you see what they're running for, right? Like, it's not bragging if you can back it up, I guess is the right way to put it. And clearly what's going on out there is a big deal, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, Travis with his 3 events now, is pretty soon he's gonna be able to keep up with this and have his own series, right? So then now it'll be, the back and forth with that, with, what's a bigger deal to win. So,
well, what's total purse for Super Tour, including championships? Roughly.
Championship, we do for top bulb, it's $3,000 to the winning door car, $3,000 to the winning dragster for the series, and then every race is either $5,000 or $10,000 to win. This for top bulb.
Yeah.
And how many races a year? 5?
5 usually.
And then the big one, the Bonanza, right? That's not
The
included
Bonanza
there.
is one of them, yes.
Yeah. So I don't know total payout. I think we're pretty close because I'm just about with championships and everything. We're going to be like just shy of 300K total payouts this year.
Nice. Awesome. So that'd be great. I'll figure that out. I'm going to put those numbers together and I'll talk to Jay. We'll make sure we write it all down and then we'll compare notes, right?
Yeah. Well, you guys are the leaders, right? Like you guys inspired a lot of what we're doing out here, right? You guys have been doing that for how many years now?
It's got to be 5 years now, at least. Right around there. Might be more than that since they started the idea of the tour, but the championship itself has to be at least 5 or 6.
Because I feel like I was looking at that like 2016 when we did our big money race at Grand Bend. That was on the radar at that time, right? And like not new. So I think Jerome just messaged 7.
That's right.
Years.
We got 7 years.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would correspond, right? So I mean that's a while. So it's a lot of history going on there now.
Yeah, and so the news that I got about the Super Tour this week is that they already have 3 events posted, all at Lustville, Dragway. The usual. I think it's the fall bracket Bonanza, and then I think it's Canada Day weekend. So the plan is not 100%, but awfully close. They're adding 2 more events at ICAR Mirabel. So they'll come back for the spring race at the end of May, and then they'll have the September one at the end of the year for the bracket finals event, which is always a wicked party. If that's like, Andrew, I know everybody's bugging you, you gotta come to the tour. If you could make it so that you hit the bracket and did the bracket finals at ICAR, then you really have a full experience because the finals.
I'm excited for ICAR. I'll be honest with you. I had last year we were toying with the end of the year just because we were looking for something. We come off the win at the 660 and we're like, all right, like naturally you win a big race. And you're like, where else can I go spend all this money on entry fees to do this again? Right. Because we're excited. And I had I had a route planned. I was so excited that I was the smartest person in the world. Cause I'm like, I found a way to ICAR that avoided so many headaches. And then just things kind of fell through on our end and this end. Right. I'm like, all right, I got to stay close to those problems.
Yeah.
But.
And the whole event actually didn't end up to go down. We had actually moved it to Lustville for it, but after everything, whatever had happened in the year, and then so time at Lustville, of course, I've got news for that. Also, I messaged Arnie, got a little update, what's going on with track, what's happening with this, based on what is going on there this year. He's got a bunch of paving going on to pave a whole bunch more pit spots. Obviously, the big one for Arnie will be the race week. His race week. The air quotes are kind of lame, but that's what it's
That's one of
called.
the ones on the calendar for me, and
Yes.
I already approved that one through the boss. So that's I'm looking forward to that. I'm that should be exciting.
Absolutely. And then Travis has a race the weekend before that for the little bracket event. I think the schedule conflicts. I think that's the end of July. That's got to be.
That'd be the West Coast Classic
Yes.
in Mission.
Yes, because that's what I was looking through the schedule and then made sure I knew that's what it was. Because that one, so they start out Saturday, Sunday, the first weekend with 2 5-granders for top bulb, and then you got a couple days off, go relax, check out the area, do whatever you want to do. Racing still will start Thursday with a shootout, and then 3 10-granders for top bulb, 2,500 to win semi-pro for all 3 of those. So that's obviously that's gonna be a huge week to run.
Yeah.
And just Lustville in general, right now he's got, I think it's 10 or 11. It's over 10, or not exactly the amount, but I know there's at least 10 races paying $5,000 or more just at one track, right? So that's going to be huge for us this year, right? For Canadian drag racing to go to one area and have 10 chances to run for at least $5,000.
Yeah.
So that's massive, I think, for us. And then that, translates into needing more pit spots and everything else and all the work that's going into it.
Not to mention the 70 and 90 foot rigs that everyone seems to start to be rolling around in, right?
Absolutely.
Track built in 1960s, trying to accommodate the motorhome 32 foot trailer combo now, right? I commend some of the smaller tracks and the way they've had to try to adapt to make this stuff work, right? I know it's off topic, but that's a real thing. I looked at an overhead of Luskville just because I'm trying to plan my life out, right? And you look at it and you realize these are tight little tracks. And they do a good job getting them in there, and getting after this stuff and figuring this stuff out. Because as they grow these events, that's real issues, facing. That's a limitation, as you move forward. But I commend those guys.
Absolutely. And it is
how many entries do you guys typically get for them two or 3 10-granders the following week? What's your guys' car count for top bulb for something like that?
So for a normal regular year, I think we're right between 70 and 80 on average. Last year we were 101 entries for top bulb. 2 years ago for the foot brake or semi-pro, we were over 100 in that as well. And we're expecting, I would imagine for the bracket, it's going to be over 100. But we're going to break that again because it really is an awesome deal, especially if you can swing the 2 weeks. For us, I won't be able to stay. I'll be home from, whatever, Monday to Wednesday, but I got 3 hours to drive, right? But for people like Andrew, and then, whatever other convoy he can wrangle up from his area, right? If that works for them.
A convoy of trucks to Ottawa? Is that what we're talking about?
That's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. So Jerome says they broke 100 with foot brake last year too.
Wow.
So that's for the really big ones. And then I know bringing back the bracket finals race at ICAR, that was for a long time. That was the largest one. And then so now with the bracket being so huge, as it's always been, right? It's always been the biggest event of the year. So now they'll both be massive.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. And then even on a normal weekend for us, for at Luskville, it's still 2,500 to win, top bulb. So, really
that's the thing that I have to admit, and that's what makes me jealous. So Travis, when you're talking about, you have events for 2,500 to win is that's what we're rolling for, right? And they exist outside of the big events. And I listened to Brandon talk about, the 2,500 to win on a Saturday, Sunday, just the regular Saturday, Sunday. And I have to admit, I get jealous because unfortunately in our side of town, we don't get to run for that type of money. That's just not what happens. And we get decent car counts and there's a lot of mitigating circumstances that make it what it is, right? But God, there's days where I was we won 2,500. Can't wait for next weekend when it's $5,000. I'm do you know how many rounds I have to put up? Like the type of weekend I got to put together to win that amount of money. And I mean, I'm lucky to do it some days, right? Like, don't get me wrong. There's a point there, but like, it's a little tough some days. I got to admit. I wish Toronto didn't sit right in the middle of where the fun is at, right? That's not, we need that. We need a ring road around Toronto, and then I'd be heading east a lot more apparently. So,
No, for sure. But it's a lot of fun. I love going, and then I love that, and obviously, like you just said, we spoke about it a lot. How it's kind of keeping up with the times,
yeah,
right? Because a lot of places, and there's no shame in running for $500, $600, $700, $800 at your local track, because that just is what it is, right? That's how races start, right? There has to be that ground that people where it's not too expensive, because to really, and we've always said it, and there's always the stuff on Facebook that, oh yeah, my place is the hardest place to win, right? My track's always the best. Like, when you come and you're running for 2,500 each day, like, you really are jumping into the Shark Tank with it. So it's really tough to learn in an environment like that. That's more high stakes. Now, you can obviously run in the States, and $5,000. A lot of people will turn their head at that. But for us in our area, like, that's massive numbers, and obviously tied to Travis, like, across the country, that's large.
Yeah. And you were like, I was just thinking about this because we were talking earlier today about, so was it Miramichi or out east there that was putting on that new series? You're mentioning a little bit about it. And I remember you were telling me the numbers on it, like points racing, like big numbers, big payouts, all for the East Coast, right? And I know we don't have like an official representative to kind of speak about that per se, right? But I was impressed at what they were looking to put together, right? Like, overall, I'm impressed at what they do out east. Because, I mean, when you look at Alberta, like, you have a big standing footprint out there, right? There's population. You look at Ontario, there is, and then you talk about the East, and like the East really gets forgotten, I feel like when you get east of Montreal, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think you've got the numbers there, and I don't have the info in front of me here, but like, I was astounded at what these guys were looking to put together out in like Cape Breton Dragway, is it? And
I'm not sure which actual track it is, but so it's Tony McNeil is who's putting it on, and it's called No Place Like Home Race Series, and that's the points fund for box and no box. It's $2,500 to win in each class that pays down 10 spots. Right. So like, that's very similar to Super Tour payouts for the championship, and then whatever you were working out for your series or whatever you're doing, Travis, like, that's got to be close to it, which is massive.
Yeah, and ours is more of a mini series. Like, you guys have a little bit of a bigger, I guess, a longer commitment type thing, right? But there are like $5,000's a lot of good money to race for now. Like, even on this side of the country, it's still it's good money. And like you say, though, them 600, 700, 800 to race programs, like, we need those too, and we need these grassroots tracks for people to go and learn too, right? Because it is intimidating, because the big money events that we get to here, like our shootouts are 30K, and our main events are 10K at our races. The people that win those, they're not buying the cheapest products. They're buying all the top of the line stuff, and it's expensive to do all of that, right? So there needs to be some in between, and it's cool to see things like that all the way out on the East Coast too, because 2,500, that's good.
Yeah. It's great that they're keeping up, because like you said, and we talk about Canada being whatever, give or take, let's rough numbers, let's say 5 years behind the United States, right? So then, and when I've raced down east, then it's you took another bit of a leap back in time and that's just how it trickles down. I'm sure there's places throughout the country that seem that way, that where the racers aren't as serious, or racing's not as accessible. I think is a better way to put it, right? Like, for Andrew and I, like, it's right there. That's 8, 10, 12 hours that can get us to a lot of really big races and really big events. And then Travis, you've obviously, like, you've been around, right? You've done this, you've won a divisional championship before. Like, you've been there and seen these guys do it. So we all forget what it's like to get into it and learn all of this stuff and have genuinely no idea what's happening. How are these guys going and spending, $1,000, $2,000 on just entry fees for one of these weekends? To get somebody new into our sport, we can't have that.
Yeah.
They can't just dive in and do that because there's not going to be no return for one while you're learning. And you always get like the, lucky and whatever nonsense, but you're never going to be truly competitive without cutting your teeth by not going broke.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is I don't think that we learn by, racing, some of the guys that like you have to go and get out and race the guy that's going to stage up for $20,000 or $30,000 or whatever it may be, even $10,000, these $5,000, like that's, once you get past the intimidation factor of it, I think for some of these guys and girls that are new to the sport, you have to go and, for lack of a better term, get your teeth kicked in by some of these guys that are good. And it's just going to make you better, right?
I think you can even scale that down a little bit more, right? Like I'm going back to like when I got into racing big cars out of juniors, and like I was by far the worst junior driver on the planet, right? Which it's a strange equation, the success I've had as I got older. But, one of the biggest learning curves for me wasn't early on going to like bigger paying races. It was just going to a different track. We'd had success at one facility and we decided to kind of branch out a bit. And like the second I went to the next racetrack, you had that reality check. Okay, you've got things figured out there and just the curve. And I find that everywhere I've gone, even as I've got into bigger money racing and going to some places, like you roll into a place and you really get on a steep learning curve just by going somewhere different. That's not where your comfort zone is. Even if that track's not supposedly a better place to go from a skill level, which I don't think means much, to be honest with you, but you go right down to the micro level, right? Like, street moving up into mod or street moving into foot brake, like getting outside the comfort zone and moving to a next level is where growth takes place with that stuff, right? We just equate it to money because that's how we equate the scale. You don't have minor league racing to major minor to pro league racing. We just have, local Saturday night races to 2,500s to 5s to 10s to 100 to millions, and whatnot, right? And I think that gets lost sometimes. Oh, it's a tangent from what we're talking about where like I can't afford to go big money racing. Like that's the truth. That's people, so they're like how do I get better at this if I can't do that? There's lots of avenues. We just equate our scales to money, right? Yeah. The bigger it is, the more it's going to attract, I guess, right? But there's a lot to be said to just moving sideways, going to another track and trying something different, learning how to be competitive there with all its quirks and, competitiveness, right?
Yeah. In my mind, that's always been the mark of like a true champion is somebody that can travel and consistently do well. And, we know some of the big names in the US that do that, but, like we see it out here, like there's a good contingent around Edmonton of local guys that race there. And like, just off the top of my head, I think a lot of you guys have read the name Jason Pad. He does well kind of everywhere he goes. And, Scott Hearn, kind of his running partner, he does well kind of everywhere he goes. But like, that guy has dominated at Edmonton since he got in a car. And that's like 20, 30 years probably now that he's been behind the wheel of something out there. And like, he is great there. And, I've seen him do pretty well at our events in Medicine Hat and stuff like that. So, he's a true champion in my mind. Right. And those kind of guys that can go and travel well, I think that's a huge challenge. You're 100% right, Andrew.
And it always feels like, even if you're racing for the exact same money as you would at home, you roll in somewhere new and like, it's a goofy example, right? But like the weather's all the exact same. Everything's the exact same as it is at home. You're just at a new place. You're like, oh man, the air just feels real crisp, right? We're here, we're ready to go. And you're really heavy into it. I think, racing with your friends is great, but I know for myself, when you race with your friends too much, you have a little bit too much fun and you forget to, pay attention.
Yeah.
But that's all part of it, right? So being able to travel and be successful everywhere, really, I agree with exactly what Travis said. Like that is a real champion, or like a veteran racer, when you can adapt to new situations. Even though we're doing the exact same thing, right? Just all the other variables that go into it. Hard to adapt, and a lot of people have a very hard time getting over that mental block of being somewhere else.
Yeah. It can be very much one of those things where you get somewhere. Like I've driven to places, and like you run into that block where like, okay, you're on a roll, you get in there and you think like you don't reset to your parameters at like new place, and you get overconfident, and then it's easy to get into a peak and valley where you roll into a place and you're underconfident. Like, you roll into like this is the place that's hard to win at, and like that's all stuff you need to kind of mitigate and learn to kind of get through, right? When you roll in that, like I got the same chances as everyone else here, regardless of how many passes they've made or not made. And those are big mental blocks that you learn when you start moving outside of comfort zones, right? And that was one of the things I looked at with the schedule for this year, was trying to find places to go that assuming we could, right? Again, borders being the issue here, but like Wailusco was immediately on my radar, especially with race week, right?
Yeah.
Never been there. I've heard it's a tough place to race at, for not just the people that are there, but the fact that like that's a tough track to get dialed in on if you've never been. And like, okay, this is a new challenge. Like that's one of those places I'm going to go to and probably not be my run around talking to everyone type self, because I'm going to be in a zone trying to figure this out. But it's a fun challenge, right? And that's how you learn to grow. You can do that and then figure out how to go down to the million and figure out how to do something totally different down there, right? But that's, I think that's a thing that, when I looked at our schedule, that was, let's go find some different things to do to try to get comfortable doing different stuff that we haven't been able to do the last couple of years, right? On it. So.
Absolutely. So I guess if there's one takeaway from this whole 2022 discussion is, try something new, go to a new place, go to a new track, adventure, meet some new people. And you never know what you'll find, right? And this broadcast here proves all of it. The bracket racers from coast to coast, they're all the exact same, right? Like Travis and Andrew, they met last night officially online here for the first time. And it's about 2 minutes, and then we were just in deep discussion about whatever, just drag racing, because everybody shares the same passion. So that's I think that's a great way to close it out, is go somewhere new, try it out.
I love it. That's a good deal.
So we're there. We're kind of we're at like the 50-minute mark now. Before we get too carried away, right? Because every new conversation can go for however long. But it's been great. It's been great having Travis on here. Obviously, great having Andrew with me, as you will be for pretty much every week or every other week going forward. And then if all goes well, we'll have Travis on a bunch more coming up. And talking about different events, I'm glad that we got to have some input from some stuff down east. We got to learn some new stuff about the West Coast. It wasn't just focused on our regular Ontario, Quebec. And thanks to everybody for in the comments, right? I love that we get to watch them all and see them, and everybody gets to interact with it. Thanks for all doing that. There's a lot of stuff coming up for 2 weeks, because what is it? February 15th, I believe, will be our next show.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah.
February 15th, or yeah. I think
that's the day after a big day too, is it not? Am I wrong?
Yes, exactly. So what else was there? We got make sure we'll go over the announcements for the shootout races. Travis, you got, what do you say, 2 weeks?
Yeah, so next week flyers will be out beginning of next week, and then I'll probably go live. So make sure everybody that's interested in our events goes to T&T Motorsports on Facebook. That's where I do most of the announcements through. I'll go over the format for this year, and then we're going to open up pre-entries on February 17th, and I'll go over kind of all the details for everything next week when I go live. And there's a lot of info on the flyers, and it's a lot to digest. So yeah, we'll be going through all of that next week.
Absolutely. And then Andrew, we spoke to Drew February 5th, which is this Saturday coming up, for the shootout races. Yes, noon Eastern time for the 660 Nationals for the shootouts. Does not require payment until August 1st.
Yeah, it's $100. I think is to lock in your spot, balance on arrival type of thing on the 17th, 18th, whatever the race is. And that's like both box and no box. They're putting up shootouts. I think I can't remember the numbers. I don't want to speculate. I know that the box shootouts are the same as last year, if I understood it. I can't remember what the no box part is, and I won't officially go on record and put a foot in my mouth, but there is no box shootouts as well. But Friday or Saturday, February 5th, noon, they're taking the pre-entry list. So if you want in, go to their page, figure out how to do that, send them a message.
Absolutely. Get on that. So we have the shootouts covered. Next week or 2 weeks, like I said, we're going to start going a little change of pace for it. We're going to talk foot brake and no box, foot brake versus no box, with a special guest for that. That will be Michael Beard from Loose Rocker Promotions will be on to talk to Andrew and I. I'd love to have an opinion on different things, but seeing as I foot braked once since I got out of the junior, I'm not sure if I'm a credible source. So that'll be good. Make sure you're ready for 2 weeks, and we'll have Michael on. Right now, we have 15% off sale on all Bracket Life apparel on our website up until Valentine's Day, February 14th. Just in case anybody forgot, that is coming up. Right? It is coming fast. And if you haven't already, then don't forget, like the Facebook page, follow us or subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, share the broadcast, keep up with it all, go onto our website, sign up for the Bracket Life Bulletin. You get updates. Rachel is all over the updates. She sends out the links for this, links to the blogs, links to our YouTube channel or our YouTube videos when we're not doing this. And other than that, we covered pretty well all of it. Thank you guys. Thanks again, Travis. Thanks again, Andrew. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. It's been great. I really enjoy doing this, and I'm really excited for everything going forward.
Awesome.
Me too. Thanks for having me.